Yep.
Alrighty, Coach. I guess first and foremost, just the first thought. I know, going into Monday, you guys were pretty confident that you were going to be a 1 seed after the title, but the first just initial reaction of being a 1 seed and the number 1 overall seed.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Especially given the last real 6 weeks in terms of where our RPI was and the schedule that we faced down the stretch. I told our team yesterday after the selection show that probably the first RPI we were probably somewhere in the 20s, but we obviously grew it to that kind of 4 to 7 range the last couple weeks, and we knew Thursday was going to be very important. Right? It was kind of 4 versus 5 in that game with Notre Dame. It was a draw, so we kind of still hung around that spot. And then obviously some results around the country, UCLA's result, Alabama's result, and then obviously most importantly our result put us in a position where we get to be home. But obviously only home Friday nights, and that's all we're worried about.
What do you know about Florida Gulf Coast at this point? Can you kind of give some insight on how you guys go about preparing for the tournament from a scouting standpoint?
Yeah, well, good news is we already played them this fall, and so a little bit of familiarity as opposed to just getting a random team. So we did a full scout on them earlier in the fall. They've been playing slightly differently since then in terms of their shape. They were tough, even though the score line, wound up being 5-0. It was not a 5-0 game. It was a 0-0 game at halftime, and we talked about that yesterday. Our kids remember that, and our kids remember them hitting the crossbar, I think on 2 occasions in the first half, and there were some moments where we were on our heels, giving the ball away in our back half. So we're going to need to be sharp. They're going to come here guns a-blazing. They pressured us last time and made it difficult for us at times, and so we need to be very well prepared. We're off today. Our kids are hopefully kind of getting their schoolwork sorted because we were away for a while last week and getting much needed rest and recovery, and then we'll be back together tomorrow afternoon, and we'll have 2 days to prepare and talk about Florida Gulf Coast.
How much you advance scout potential future opponents in the tournament?
We kind of divided responsibilities this morning, and all I really said to my assistants was, I gave one of them Lamar, one of them LSU, but didn't say anything beyond that. And actually the one who has LSU just pulled me in to tell me some thoughts on Florida Gulf Coast. So that's all we care about right now, is Florida Gulf Coast. If they start to peek at some stuff regarding the others, cool, but we need to focus on Florida Gulf Coast.
You had mentioned that you guys played the Florida Gulf Coast Thursday this year, but I would assume that, and you guys want to be a bit different team than you guys were playing in the year, and you would assume your opponent as well. So how much can you take from from that game, and how much you have to watch film to make sure you guys are ready?
Yeah, that's a great question. That was September the 8th. It was right after our Florida game, so we were 1-0-2 going to Florida, having played 3 games and scored 4 goals. We went to Florida and obviously scored 5 goals, and then that was you're right on. That was ages ago in terms of kind of our team, our coaching, our understanding of each other, and figuring our team out. And that was a game where I think both were back, but neither of them played. Heather Payne had just gotten back from Ireland duty, and Ekajini had just gotten back from her Nigeria duty. And so we were without a couple of players ourselves that day. And I think we're just a whole lot more comfortable with each other, and both our defending expectations and then our attacking kind of fluidity and confidence and just team chemistry all around.
As we know, soccer can be a little fluky game. 1 or 2 bounces and the game changes completely. You guys have had that this year. You've had it in the past. So ACC regular season co-champs, ACC tournament champions, and the number 1 overall seed. Would you deem the season a success even if you guys don't win a championship?
The ultimate goal is obviously what's on that wall right there, and that's what we talked about after we beat Virginia Tech, a week and a half ago. So everybody measures successes in different ways. Right now, as we sit here, we have hardware to show for all the efforts that our kids have put forth, right? And so I certainly, if we don't win a national championship, the last thing I would call this season is a failure, right? I would still call it a success and still say that we accomplished many things. But there would be certainly would be disappointed if we don't win a national championship.
Coach, Jenna touched on it last week, but just how in her final year she's realizing how much more important it can be to play at home, to be a 1 seed. The hope is that if you make it to Cary, that you've got quite a few more home matches. So how important is that for these ladies? They understand that they know that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it is. It's cool that she said that and feels that, right? Because it's old hat, right? I mean, I know it's kind of been on my calendar, and I remember sitting in my family with my whole family and extended family last November watching this game versus Michigan, right? The day after Thanksgiving, my whole family was in town. We had just lost to Michigan at Tennessee in the Sweet 16. And so I had just kind of an additional rooting interest, or not rooting, but just interest in watching the game. For these kids, I can't remember the last time Florida State was on the road for an NCAA tournament game. I don't think I've watched a lot of Florida State soccer over the years. I have no visual memory of watching Florida State in a road NCAA tournament game, right? But we faced that going into last week. That was a very real possibility. That probably would not have happened until the Elite Eight, right? And then you get into, okay, are you going to St. Louis? Are you potentially going to Notre Dame? Are you potentially going to North Carolina? Are you going to Penn State? You just never know. And so then you're dealing with crowd, and it's what we dealt with at Tennessee last year. We went to Michigan, and it was 34 degrees and sideways rain and wind on the Sunday game against Michigan. It's really hard to play in that. The footing, the ground was tough, and this is Tallahassee, and as you can see, the sun is shining and it's 80 degrees. So hopefully it remains that way for the next month.
And then, Coach, before the ACC tournament, we talked about the atmosphere and the feel of postseason play. It hadn't quite hit yet because, if you lost a match last week, you were still playing. But, now we've reached that week. So have those conversations come up, the messages, obviously, it jumps up even a notch with this tournament?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, they haven't come up, and honestly, a lot like I felt last week in these ACC tournament games. They're big games, but I'm coaching kids who've been there and done that, right? And so when we come Friday night, these kids, they know the deal. They know the routine. Obviously, we're playing a couple of younger kids, but beyond that, these kids have been around the block, and there is, in all aspects of all of our lives, doesn't matter what profession we're in, there's no substitute for experience. There's no substitute for having been there, and our kids have been there, and I think there's massive value in that.
I mean, watching the selection show yesterday, when you saw Tennessee, obviously you're watching for yourself, but when you saw Tennessee pop up, was there any kind of pride? What did you feel watching, your old school come up on there?
Obviously happy for those kids. I miss those kids a lot. Competitive group. I love them all still. I want them to do well. I knew they were going to, be in the bracket. It was just a question of really, 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 really hoping that I wasn't going to see Tennessee anywhere near Florida State. And so that was my probably biggest prevailing emotion.
So what would you do if it was a chance? Or I don't think you guys played a championship game, but semifinal, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know they're not in our 16, so I don't know where it would be beyond that. But I hope it would happen at that level, because it means that they've had that kind of success. That would be phenomenal, and it obviously would mean we would have that success as well.
Coach, can you just detail exactly how much it means in your first year here to get that ACC championship, but not only secure that, but on a pair of revenge wins over UNC and Notre Dame? How great that is.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the last thing you said is the revenge wins, right? This whole, we're talking about playing Florida Gulf Coast 2 months ago. This whole season has just been getting to know each other period, a growth period. Every year it's a new team, right? But this in particular is an additional new team, given some of the pieces we lost, and then obviously given the fact that Mark Krikorian and his staff are no longer here, right? And so to go through last week and us continue to grow as a team and beat a team sort of on penalties, right? It counts as a draw, but avenge that loss to Notre Dame, and then turn around and do that against Carolina and be trailing in both games, right? That's a real big deal, right? We've just shown ourselves that we can be on a really big stage in a really tough moment, trailing, and come back and win the game, right? So the biggest thing is the confidence, right, that our kids should feel as we enter now this do or die, obviously tournament, obviously 6-game tournament here that we face. For me personally, it's crazy the stats that Mark Okorian has put up here, right? I think it's now 9 of the last 12 ACC tournament championships. He had won 4 regular season championships. So what's nice is by having won, we don't have to talk about not having won. We can talk about what's next. When we won the regular season, we were able to just talk about, okay, here's the ACC tournament, and we don't have to talk about what went wrong in the regular season. Here we are, we're talking about the NCAA tournament. We're not talking about what went wrong at the ACC tournament. We're talking about our team continuing to grow, get results, and be better prepared for the NCAA tournament.
So, Coach, you're going to be 100% healthy for the upcoming tournament. Are there any knocks or anything like that? Anybody not available?
No, we're good. We're good.
Can you talk a little bit about Olivia Garcia? I don't think she played in the ACC tournament. Was that due to injury or coach's decision?
Just coach's decision. And I told her this on Friday or Saturday in the hotel, right? She's been playing really, really well. And she's been training really well. She doesn't like to hear that, right? The only thing that a coach can say to a kid that a kid wants to hear is, you're going in the game, right? Outside of that is just blah, 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 right? They don't want to hear it. Hopefully maybe some piece of her likes hearing those words, but I don't know. Over the weekend, you obviously noticed, right? Leilani's been a 90-minute player for us. Clara Robbins and her kind of defensive presence against, 2 attacking midfielders in Notre Dame and 2 attacking midfielders in North Carolina. We kind of played her as a second 6, which really meant that we were only using 1 additional midfielder, and that was Maria. Sometimes Zippé has been that second midfielder and given Clara a little bit of a break, but Zippé, we went with Zippé up top, we went with Bissell up top, both over Garcia, right, for a couple different reasons, but Garcia not playing is not anything to do with Garcia, I'm hoping that her number gets called Friday night.
Can you talk a little bit about Corbin Albert? So it looked like you guys...
Who? I don't know the name.